Welcome to the 11th episode of the Soloventure podcast. We're back after a short break while Reese was traveling throughout Bulgaria and then on to Italy, where he is now. Today, we talk about a recent milestone that Reese hit in his email copywriting career, including how he's been able to get this far. We also discuss our overall impressions of the state of email marketing in 2023 with our strategies and tips for outreach and working with agencies. And as always, if you have a business or travel question you'd like answered, please leave them in the comments.
Hello, everybody. If you have not been here for 2 weeks, it's because I was in Bulgaria last week on holiday. I met up with a friend and we did a road trip around the country. If you have never been to Bulgaria, go, because it is stunning. It is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen. I reckon it's like half the country is around half the country is mountains and forests. Not rainforests, but very luscious green forests. It was funny because I'm from the UK, and when I landed, I remember looking out the plane thinking, it looks exactly the same as the UK. So I think the weather is very similar, except for Bulgaria's warmer. And I landed in Sofia, the capital, really cool city, mix of old kind of pre-war architecture, which was very beautiful, and then like brutalist Soviet style post-war, which if you're into that stuff, it's quite interesting. And then we drove south to a place called Bansko, which is where there's a Nomad. The Nomad Fest is on right now. Big Nomad co-working digital nomad conference. And CC, who we were with 2 weeks ago. Oh yeah, people know that I was in Bulgaria because we did the podcast there.
Yeah, last episode was when you two were together. So
that's it. Yeah, so Sid seeing CC, we drove down to Bansko, which is where CC is now at Nomad Fest, funnily enough. Saw some really beautiful mountain valleys, did a couple of nice little hikes. And then we drove east and then north to a place called Plovdiv. Incredible place. It's the cultural hub of Bulgaria. They've got like an old town. It felt very much like Italy, which is really nice. And the weather the whole time was stunning. Yeah, fucking 100% recommend Bulgaria if you've never been.
Yeah, no, it's been huge in recent years too, especially Bansko is really blown up, because they've got the festival there, but I think just year round people, everybody's heard of it by now. And I think like one of the draws is, and I don't know what it's like. You're there, you were just there. Like price wise, but when we were planning on going last year, it was one of the cheaper places in Europe, and it's also out of the Schengen zone. So it kind of gives you that little bit of a break if you're trying to pull off that whole deal. And I think that Bulgaria will soon be part of it. But for now, it's still a place where nomads can, skip over for a bit and come back in.
Yeah, 100%. It is very cheap. We had some delicious meals at very unassuming places in small towns, and it was delicious. And the amount, we weren't extravagant, but the amount of food, we'd have, maybe 2, maybe 3 mains to kind of share, big pies. And it was like drinks included. It was crazy cheap. Couldn't believe it. Like walking out there thinking that would be the price of, almost the price of a pint in London.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. And it'll be interesting too. We'll have, or the plan is at least, CC's still there. So we're looking to get her back on in the next month or so, whenever she settles, just to see what the experience was like at the festival, because we've talked about going there at some point, still on the fence, but it's a huge gathering. It's annual now. It's always in June, as far as I know. So anyway, she's actually there in the middle of it. Her and her husband are, and so it'll be nice to get a little update just to see how that's all going. But and then so that was Bulgaria, and you've been in Italy now for a few days, right?
Yeah, it's so hot. If you can probably see the sweat beads on my forehead. It's so hot. It was the same as Bulgaria, but I don't know why I'm just not. It's actually. It says 27 right now, but it feels like 35.
Yeah. I got to think about this. For some reason, I wish America would go over and stop using the what are we on, the empirical system still? because
Oh,
I
yeah,
should know
found
better
right,
because
have you?
yeah, I travel a lot. I should know better, but for some reason, like we were about to, when I was a kid, when I was in like elementary school or something, we were about to make the switch, from feet and yards to meters and all that stuff. And then we were going to do the same with the temperature. And then I guess they were just like, nope, America's got to be by itself over here. So it's confusing, but that is fucking hot though, for sure.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to see on my phone. It doesn't show me what the equivalent is, but it's hot.
yeah, that's all
Um,
right.
yeah, so I'm here. I'm here for one more month, and then I'll be back in the UK for a little bit. And where are
Yeah.
you based again?
I'm still, yeah, no, I'm still hanging. I'll be in Michigan now for the rest of the summer. We've got a lot of family around here. It's a pretty big state. So I'll be in this spot for a few weeks and then just traveling around. And that'll be interesting because a lot of that's up in the North Woods. So that'll be nice. We'll get some, we should soon here for those watching, we'll have a lot more like B-roll and a lot more things of what we do when we're not sitting in these seats. So we intend to put out some more content so you can see what we actually what we do on a regular basis when we're not recording one of these. So I'll be traveling around, but it's all driving distance from here, so nothing crazy. And then after that, there's no plan yet until we all decide what we're going to do. But how long are you in Italy for then?
1 month, and then
1 month.
around 3 weeks in the UK, and then I need to go to Poland for something, and then we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, that's the best part
That's the
about this is
beauty.
that, yeah, it feels good. Like there was a time in my life not that long ago when I was like, because I was even doing it as a nomad. I was planning out like the next trip, like I'd kind of want my next 6 months, 180 days figured out. Like I would want the next one, and there is a little bit of comfort in that, knowing like, hey, my next destination's booked. I'm locked in at that price, whatever it happens to be
Yeah.
at the time. And but now we're just kind of winging it, which is kind of cool too. Like if it gets cold here in October, just fucking leave, But so yeah, there's not as much planning. Of course, that could screw you with the plane tickets and the Airbnbs or the whatever lodging you end up getting, but that's just life. It's nothing you can do about that. But you also had, I think, a few weeks ago now, that you got a breakthrough with your email copywriting gig. Is that the one that for the company here in the U.S.?
It's that's just everything I've been working on
Oh yeah.
for the
Okay.
last 8 months. So essentially, all the emails that I've written copy for, in total, the revenues, the revenue generated is over $1 million
Wow.
US dollars,
Sure.
which is a really nice milestone. I started off 8 months ago, and that was like, it was a nice thing, like, oh, that'd be cool. And for anyone who's in the email marketing world, it's not that that's easy, but it is more achievable than a lot of people think. Like if you compare it to actually having to make $1 million, which unfortunately that's not what happened, did not make $1 million.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot easier than doing that. However, there's still hard work, 100% luck as well is involved. And partly, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, my writing generated over $1 million. Like,
Well,
because it didn't. Like, I'm not saying like that's not what's happened. Like, these emails are designed really nicely. The strategy itself is conducive to hitting the right people at the right time to generate sufficient sales. Like, there's all these other pieces, and no copywriter should sit there and be like, my writing, unless you kind of direct response and it's literally like words, you know, unless you're doing that, like, yeah, I don't want to sit here and be like, that's what happened.
yeah.
But it is a really, really nice milestone. And I look back on that 8 months and I've worked with incredible people. I've learned so much. I'm not a multi-year copywriter. This is all still quite new for me. So I've learned a lot more on the strategy side. It's been a hell of an experience. And to be honest, the £1 million thing is a nice little thing to say. But knowing I've now got all that kind of wisdom that I've picked up and connections with people across the world, like, it's interesting that anyone building a remote company now has access to people across the world, talent across the world. But even like, I'm not an agency owner building a team, But even just being a remote person, getting to interact with that other talent across the world is really cool. Like I've been used to being in London where everyone's kind of pretty local and they were born an hour away and grew up in that
Yeah.
culture. It's been really cool to be on, calls with someone in LA who grew up there and is a, really good email strategist, to kind of learn a little bit about their culture and their lives and also the stuff that they know at work. So it's much fonder for me to kind of look back on that experience as well, because especially on the agency side and anyone that is doing the email copywriting route, I really do think agencies are a great way to get experience. Like I have worked with brands that are big in the USA, and that's definitely part of my being able to accelerate such a big number. As well as all the learning that has happened and the mentorship with Francis and the Nomadic Copywriter, extremely valuable. But being able to, have access with, multiple agencies that have these really big clients meant that I kind of like jumped a load of steps to kind of get to the exposure to those clients. And that's definitely a big part of the success, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I forget. Just to remind everybody, how long do you have like an actual day count, or how long you've actually from when you first had the idea about email copywriting until now? Have you kept track?
1 year since the idea came about.
Hmm.
I think I joined the program maybe last April, so a little over a year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of because I've been a little removed because I've taken on other things. So I've noticed a couple things this week. Um, I've got two new requests for an agency that I work for, and like you, I find agency work to be, you learn a lot. Of course, like you said, and then it's also a little bit easier. It's also easier to have those people that you work for where you just log in and log out. You have your set tasks for the day. They're not going to bother you over the weekend. Over the years, through my other jobs and businesses, the owner, the person who deals with the clients, obviously they make the lion's share of the money, but then you're getting fucking phone calls and messages at all odd hours, and you have to deal with their complaints and any revisions and stuff like that. So I agree with you that agency work, even though the money may not be as high as a private client, there's just something like relaxing and peaceful about it. I've noticed in the last week, as actually one of them just came in last night. It's a request from an agency that I already work for email copywriting, which I haven't really been involved with for a while. But the big thing was they needed somebody to not just write, but to create all the segment sequences and manage the whole email service provider. So have you noticed that too? Are you just are you writing things, or have you started to get pulled into the actual ESP management?
I've been writing things. I have always been working strategy for one of my clients as well, from the very beginning. And so then one of the other agencies is a bit more seasoned. They've been around for longer. And so they've got some of these really big clients, really big brands, and they've got like the team is quite stacked and deep, which is really cool. And that's where, there's a lot of learnings happening. What was your question again?
I forgot.
Oh
I got all
yeah,
down.
people, are you getting asked to? So in answer to your question, I've always been doing a bit of strategy, but I don't do that for every client, and I haven't noticed a change in demand. I mean, I think that strategy is going to become more and more important because it's something that, even if, let's say, ChatGPT builds a winning strategy next month, like can just do it, like, yeah, can do strategies. The client doesn't really want to have to hear that from a bot or on an email. It wants someone to walk them through. And an agency owner would be amazing at doing that because typically they run the agencies, they do sales, and they touch on strategy, but they won't have the time to do that. So we're still going to have strategist, maybe account manager, combined strategist, in this world for a pretty long time, until people get comfortable with the idea of an AI account manager, but even then, I actually think that's a bit far off.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that if I had to guess, because I'm on the roster for the particular agency that I do the emails for, that just approached me for 2 new clients, I'm not high up on that roster. Like I'm the guy they come to after they check with other people, just because I started lower than some other people in there. And if they came to me, I have a feeling it's because I'm already doing ESP management for a different client. And if, in my mind anyway, they probably asked other people, and the other people said that they didn't know how to do that, which
Yeah.
is good for me. So I guess point being is that email copywriting is a huge skill in itself and valuable. But I also would recommend anybody who gets into it. You don't have to do it right away, but eventually, start picking up some ESP or email service provider management skills, because eventually, as things start to merge together, obviously AI is involved in most platforms now. Klaviyo has their AI email assistant and helps with the branding and pulls the logo and all that stuff in, which is saves us a lot of time. But anybody going into email copywriting now, or copywriting in general, we suggest to learn about the strategy and also learn the different platforms, because you're just so much more valuable to a company if you say, yeah, I'll set this up end to end. And that way they don't have to get one person for the platform and another person to write the emails. You say, hey, look, I'll do it all. Just send me your list and I'll take care of the whole thing. And it's a one-time thing. So the email for setting up a new ESP, for, let's say Klaviyo, for example, for a new client, it's a full afternoon's worth of nonsense, setting up all the little things and building the templates. And but you know what, it's a one-time thing. After that, now, like, the ones I have set up are on autopilot. I just tack a new email on to the flow, set it for 7 days. So people shouldn't be afraid of that. I mean, I know a lot of people are like, I know nothing about these. And I'm like, trust me, if you watch a few hours worth of YouTube tutorials on whatever platform, you'll figure it out. And a lot of these ESPs offer free accounts. So even if you're not using one for somebody, just sign up for the free account and play with it yourself. It's definitely worth learning.
For sure. And I think you actually have an obligation to. I don't think that it's hard to say this broadly, because there are some niches in the email marketing world, email copywriting and copywriting worlds, that will be AI safe for longer. Some of the more direct response stuff, and people, I think, can get away with being purely copywriters. But I think for the majority of like e-commerce email copywriters, you just need to learn this stuff. Like, learn how to set up, like, you don't necessarily have to be a designer, but if you could do everything from strategy through to sending the email out, I think you're so much more valuable. Like, you're just going to make it more difficult for yourself to be like, I just want to write. Like, well, maybe write a book in your
Yeah.
time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to get more and more competitive. Whether or not AI even existed, it would have done this on a slower timescale for sure. Anyway, people will look for edges, and businesses will look to consolidate instead of having like 5 different people for different things. Which is why people like agencies, because the agency just handles everything. They have a partner, and you go from there. But as a freelancer, I think you need to it's this one person business methodology. You need to almost see yourself as a one person agency and consider the needs and requirements of people you're targeting. Again,
Yeah.
some niches, maybe you're a bit safer just being a copywriter, but for a lot of what we're focusing on, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. And knowledge is so easy to come by now too. Most of my plan is that hot there. You didn't get a fucking fan. I'll make it. I'll make it. There you
That
go.
is
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyone who's
I'll make it.
listening on Spotify, just have
Yeah.
to watch the YouTube to see what's
Yeah,
happening.
there's a lot of fanning going on. But yeah, no, so my business model the entire time for the last couple of years is just say yes to everything, because knowledge is readily available. This even before Chat GPT. I mean, look, you'll either find somebody that that'll is more than willing to help, because people like giving advice and helping for the most part, or you'll just look on YouTube for something. So My advice to anybody, and it's worked for me, is if some client comes or reaches out today and says, "Hey, can you do this?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I got it." And then I'm like, "I have no idea what I'm doing," and I'll go look it up and learn it. And if I can't find it, surely somebody in my network or some coach that I've dealt with. We always use Francis for the tough questions on email marketing. So somebody will help you. So that, for what it's worth, my advice is just take on things that you're uncomfortable with. You will be able to learn it. Clients aren't expecting turnaround in one day, unless they need an answer immediately. Say, "Hey, yeah, I can handle that for you. Let's meet in a couple days." That's all the time you need to figure it out. So, and it's something you need to get comfortable with. Obviously, as technology changes, and we're all going to start having to do or having to learn things that we probably thought we would never have to. But that's just the industry. That's just the way we're headed.
But going back to, only because we've had a few people ask us some questions and I want to touch on some of them. We'll go into more detail on some of the questions in a separate episode. But there might be a few questions about, okay, cool, $1 million generated through sales of emails. I wanted to say one thing because there will be people watching that will be like, can I do that? Am I good enough? Like, is my copy good enough? Maybe it's not good enough right now, but one, it can get better. So don't give up. And two, my copy was never perfect. It's not like I've written, 500 emails that were spot on every time. I've had back and forth with my clients. I've had disagreements, and that's absolutely fine. You're never going to get it right 100% of the time. And I've had some copy that didn't make it. And it's totally fine. You will get setbacks like that. And I'll be honest, the first few times it happened, I was like, oh, I wasn't good enough, or I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose the client. And it's a natural fear. But everyone will have that experience at one point. So when you do have it, do not worry about it. It's very normal. And the best way to handle it is to remember that, okay, if the worst case scenario is you do lose a client, you can always get another one, and you can. But also, it will take a long time to get to that stage. Speak with your client, always ensure you've got really good communication, be enthusiastic, show them that you care. And also keep in mind that one of the things that I really annoyed with myself, that I can't remember his name. Actually, Adam Noor. He's probably not going to be bothered that I mentioned him, but he's someone on Twitter I started following, and he mentioned this. Yeah, it is Adam Noor. Apologies, Adam, if I pronounced your name wrong. But he, in a tweet, this was ages ago, he was like, most clients he's worked with don't care if you're not the best copywriter in the world, but they care if you're on time, you're responsive, and you're a good team member, whether you're remote or not. So also keep those things in mind. Don't always just don't just focus only on the copy. How good are you to work with? Do people like you and like working with you? Do you respond to people on time? Are you proactive in other areas? And so those are the things I've worked on a lot as well during that process.
No, to that point though about showing up for things. So a lot of people, and this could just be, maybe it's just not something certain people think about, but a lot of the success I've had, because I've very recently been in a position where I was working amongst a team of freelancers, and out of a large team of them, I was the only person offered a full-time job. And the reason for that is, at least I believe, is that I wasn't the best writer out of all of them by far, because I was able to view some of their deliverables, and some of them are far better writers. But I showed up to every meeting, even if it was, at an inconvenient time for me. I interacted with the other employees. I asked them, like, hey, I got to put in some time this weekend. I'll be in front of the computer. Is there anything you need handled? And some of these things, of course, we genuinely mean and we want to do. And some of it, it's do I really want to work all weekend? Not really. But it's just those small things, keeping up with communication, delivering when you say you're going to deliver. If you can't, let somebody know. When you get feedback, and it's just human nature. No, nobody likes to get their shit back. And it's all Google doced up, because we don't use red ink anymore, but it's all comments. Nobody likes to see that. But what they're looking for, and even if even if not to their face, you're just super stressed out about it, the right thing to do is say, all right, cool. I see what you're trying to do here. And, some clients don't understand marketing speak. Some of the things we have to say in marketing are, quite frankly, are cheesy, and like, it's not the way we would talk in public, but they may not understand that. So if you can convey that to them, a lot of them will come around. But really, it's just the communication. It's how you take things, and it's showing up to meetings when you can. When the opportunity comes up, and as companies start to scale back their staff, just that's as progress happens anyway, whether AI aside, but as companies start to scale back, human nature, whether they like everybody on their team equally, they're going to remember that Reese showed up for every meeting and he had something, valuable to say, or he responded immediately. So those things are going to, even subconsciously, they're going to stick out in a manager's mind. So when it comes time to either promote or cut people, all those little factors, and they may not even know they're doing it at the time, but the management team will be like, yeah, that guy was great. Let's bring him in or give him a raise or whatever. So I know a lot of people have the attitude, and they're not necessarily wrong for this, but they're like, this is my job. I'm signing in. I'm going to do exactly my job, and I'm not going to answer emails or whatever over the weekend or outside of work hours. You could totally do that, but I've been able to get even more out of client work and even more opportunities, because I'm like, I know it's Saturday, I shouldn't have to answer this, but if I'm going to stand out, I'm going to answer this email, and I'm going to make sure I get my stuff in on time. So everything you just said is very important about just showing up, even if it's inconvenient.
100%. I really like that. And it makes me think of two things. One, a recent Tim Ferriss podcast with Huberman, which I know you've probably listened to in the last couple of weeks. It was like a 4-hour one, which was pretty good. And the second point, which I'll actually start with, on that line of thinking, that kind of over delivering, showing up more than maybe you need to, it doesn't necessarily have to last forever. But you have to realize, especially if you come through on like a cold email or a cold DM, this person doesn't know who you are. They don't trust you, and why should they? Even if you got a really good Twitter profile or whatever, or a LinkedIn profile, they still don't know you. That might help and give them a little bit of trust. You need to show them in the beginning, I am worth it. I will over deliver. It's good quality. I'm super responsive. And you know what? 3 months in, when you build a relationship with the person or the agency, yeah, maybe you can then kind of put some barriers in place. Like, okay, guys, like, I don't want on a Friday, or I'm not going to be working any weekends. Usually it's fine because they trust you, and at least they know that they've got a member of the team that they can trust, and they know your quality is good and you always deliver on time. So if you're not available 7 days a week anymore, they still know you're going to provide what they need. So it doesn't have to last forever. And two, well, the first point, the Tim Ferriss thing, he mentioned it on that podcast. It was more in the context of networking, not necessarily with the pure intent of networking, but how he operated in the early days when no one knew who he was, out of genuine curiosity and desire, volunteering at events and going the extra mile because it was so easy because no one else did, like they did the bare minimum. So it was well easy to stand out. And going up to I think he mentioned about going up to the event organizer as opposed to the panel individuals. Again, out of genuine curiosity, but it ended up serving him very, very well. And I think just the same things can apply with what we're talking about, is go the extra mile, because I do think that there's possibly a generational thing happening right now where people are almost like very guards up. And, maybe there's good reason for that. But ultimately, if you do go above and beyond because you care about this, it's not like we're assuming you want to do this work and you want to build a business in this world. So on that assumption, do it, go the extra mile, because you will stand out. You will build a relationship, possibly deeper, definitely quicker. Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, first impressions, they apply in everything. Whether it's it's funny.
It's like every time I do like a bit of talking,
Yeah, I gotta
I'm like
fucking
not
sweat it
thinking
out.
about it.
Yeah.
And then like I stop and I'm like, oh, it's really hot. I'm
Yeah.
like,
First impressions are super important in anything, whether you're at the pub or dealing with a new client. And it really, honestly, it's not that hard to stand out because the market or the industry has been flooded, especially after COVID. Everybody wanted to become a copywriter. So there's a lot of people in the industry. It's saturated, but to stand out has not been that hard, because again, I'm in some of these group Slack messages. They'll put out a whatever communication for copywriters to do something. And out of the 10 people in there, I jump on it right away. And it wasn't hard for me to send that quick message, even if it's something I can't do for a week. Just say, yeah, I got this. I mean, these aren't hard concepts. So, in order to stand out and really, get to the top of, whatever format you're working on, it just takes a little bit of effort.
there will be a burning question, I think, so I'll cover it really quickly because it doesn't take too long. How did I get those clients? Cold email. And I did not do it properly. If you're going to do cold email, do it properly. Look into domain, like warming up a domain. Like I had a warm domain; it was my own domain, and I was taking the risk that if I sent too many emails out from that email address, it could get blacklisted. I just took the risk. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I was still somewhat careful. I sent basically 5 emails a day. I used Google to find the agencies, and I would just be like, email marketing agency, and I would try across the world, UK, USA, New York, like state level, city level, UK, mainly UK, US, some in Australia, and the same for just brands. And the clients I've worked with to get to that million figure were agencies. So like marketing agency, email marketing agency. And if you're going to go for a brand, it's just like clothing brands or like gym brand. Like you'll know what to do, what to search. And I just built a really big spreadsheet. Um, and I just went through, started emailing 5 emails a day. At one point, I got up to like 30 emails a day, which was really silly if you don't want to screw your domain up. But I made it. It took 4 weeks to get a client, and I mean my conversion rate wasn't that good. Like I sent, I think, 500 emails, and I got 2 clients out of it. So I don't think it was an amazing conversion rate, but I had more calls and I built a few connections from it. And I'm not necessarily working with those people, but we are in touch, which is quite good. So in the scheme of things, it's not complicated. It's a bit of effort and it's a bit of time, but it wasn't complicated.
Yeah, it's a little tedious, all the outreach, and it's super. I find it to be extremely annoying. But like you said, in a month's time or less, if you have a client, when you're in the middle of it, it's like any other thing we talk about. When you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh God, this is going to take forever. But then you look back and you're like, well, it didn't take that long at all. Like 4 to 8 weeks, a couple of clients, and like Francis says, if you get one really good client, then it gives you the breathing room, to whatever, like to kind of like expand and learn a few things and start doing some outreach. So it's like anything else. Like it seems daunting. It's like, oh, I don't want to sit down in front of this computer and copy and paste and do all this research, but it's like, just take an hour a day. I mean, what's the alternative? You're not going to get found any other way. It's not like, you could be the best writer in the world, but if nobody knows who you are, it's just
exactly
part of the process.
One other tactic is, it's helpful if you're more confident on the phone, but if you're like in your country, because obviously calling abroad, you have fees. But if you're, call agencies, it's harder to get through to brands because there's like 3 layers. But marketing agencies, usually you get through to a front desk or an EA that would take the call. And I enjoyed it, so I'm biased. However, a few things to note about it. One, you kind of warm up getting the right email address. So part of this issue can be finding the right email address. There are tools available for this. Hunter is one of them. There are loads more. Like it's easy to find. Just Google them. But yeah, sometimes it can be hard to find the best email address. So when I would call up, I would be like, what would I say? hey, I just wanted to check in to see, I wanted to find out if you ever work with freelance copywriters or freelance email copywriters. Um, and usually they'd be like yes or no. And sometimes they'd be like yes. And I'd be like, oh, amazing. Like, what's the best email I could send over some samples to? And they'd be like, yeah, this is the email of the marketing manager. And I'd be like, amazing. And not only did I get the email address, but I've been kind of warmed up, especially if they do end up saying to Amanda, hey, someone's just called saying that they're going to send over some samples. Amanda's aware that's coming. So when the email drops in the inbox, it's not like, oh, who is this? Get out. It's like, oh, okay, this person's called up, which one is a good sign. Like they were happy to call. And two, someone's already taken the call. So like if the EA or receptionist didn't be like, go away. Like you made a good enough impression that they were happy to give over the details. So that worked really well to get a lot of responses. So my open rate or response rate for the amount of calls I made was really high. I didn't get any clients out of it. Typical reasons like they didn't have the budget available or they didn't have enough work at the moment, but they kept your email on file. That I think is a really good strategy. Something else that this Adam Law guy on Twitter, we'll have to send him a message and say we've mentioned him because now he's famous to 22 new subscribers. At Soloventure, he shared a really cool idea, which if I was in the UK and could do this and send the letters, I would do. I'm not there, so I can't do that. Is sending physical letters, and I just thought that was genius. Like, who's doing that? No one's doing that.
Yeah.
So if you sit there with, I mean, yeah, that is tedious, but you sit there with 500 printed out letters and you send physical letters to CEOs or marketing managers, the chance of open rate probably pretty high. Especially if you do a good job in the envelope. If it looks dodgy, then yeah, you're not going to open. But if it looks legit, yeah, they're going to open it because like who doesn't open mail?
Yeah.
Like even if it is dodgy, they're probably going to open it.
Yeah.
Like why would you not open it? It's got your name on it.
I would.
There's a curiosity element. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I totally. Yeah.
So like that's another option. And to be honest, like if you're in a city, get up, leave the house and go and walk to offices. Walk in there. And there will be people listening that is like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. You have absolutely nothing to lose. If they don't want to work with you, you will probably never see them again, ever. And you don't have to go back into that office. See it as an experiment and see it as a challenge to overcome if there are some worries or nerves, and it's okay to have those nerves because it's a little bit more bold. But I tell you what, if someone walked into the office asking for a job like that, it also can be quite a good impression.